Hey, Outpost fans. Welcome back to the Outpost After Show here on Afterbuzz TV. Tonight, we are talking Episode 7, The Colipsum Conundrum. We're talking Janzo's bravery, Gwyn's new duties as queen, and where's Garret? Stay tuned.
You're tuned in to Afterbuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
I don't know about you guys, but this episode was a complete 180 for some of our characters, and it was really nice to see them in different roles a little bit. So
I think it's really what we had decided last week, just coming to life. So we saw more development, and also I want to say excellent job to Jessica Green, Imogen Waterhouse, Jake Strawman, and Anand Dize Barochi for their acting prowess. I felt like this, especially Gwyn, her acting in this one was very well done.
Definitely. We are going to get into all of that later. Coming up later in the show, we'll be talking about Janzo and Talon and their journey for the Colipsum, Gwyn's new duties as queen, also her conflicts with the Marshal, and some special fan shoutouts. But before we get into any of that, guys, overall thoughts on tonight's episode?
Yeah, I definitely got way better. I got more into it this time. Again, it just keeps getting better and better, and like Tehran said, I feel like the acting is really well done this time.
And we saw some people of color, so I was happy.
Yeah, definitely good on that. Just I'm at the point where it's like the more Janzo, the better for me. I feel like he was always there, and in the previous two episodes, well, not last episode, the episode before that, he was in it, but not so much. Last episode, we got a bit of him, and then this episode, we saw a whole new side of him, where he's braver, because he's always been kind of a nervous wreck.
It's always been in him.
It's always been in him, but it finally came alive, and I think that's something we should definitely just dive straight into. So, we get a little bit more of his backstory at the beginning of this episode. We learned that he had a sister, and his sister was sold by the mistress, this woman who now is kind of sort of his mother. And then, Talon basically is just like, this woman's not good to you, but he's such a people pleaser. He literally says he does not want to disappoint anyone. And that has been so clear from the very beginning, is that he is a people pleaser. He doesn't want to disappoint anyone. He doesn't want to disappoint Talon. He doesn't want to disappoint the mistress, even though she treats him terribly and is literally sending him off to his death outside the outpost, like if Talon wasn't with him.
But it's not just about not wanting to disappoint people. He actively seeks validation for things. So he loves getting validated for the things he does. And I mean, he doesn't talk himself up a lot, but he definitely loves being recognized for any small thing he does.
I'm sure that's also just because he hasn't had that growing up. Clearly, it seems like he grew up with the mistress who was just like, I can use you. You'll be beneficial to me. Your sister's no good, so she has got to go. So I'm getting rid of her. And which is kind of weird, because I think maybe that's how he was saved, because he was seen as useful, so now he wants to prove being useful.
He has to live up to it still.
Yeah. So there's that pressure. In his mind, there's not really any pressure from the audience point of view, but in his mind, he sees this whole pressure.
Sure, there's a little pressure on Janzo. By the way, my name's Tehran, in case you were wondering. And my thing about Janzo is the concept of Janzo is braver than most people give him credit for, uses his brains to outsmart things, as we saw when he was fighting the Bone Wolf. And in this episode, we saw a lot more magic and a lot more mythology, which we've all been hoping would happen, and we keep seeing more and more, and it's great. And even his dealings with the Greyskins. Janzo, as scared as he was still the one who was calm under pressure in a way, in his own way of dealing with things, and just wanted the business transaction and wanted to move on. Just interesting. And where did he get all that rope? Where did he get all that rope and all those artifacts, cups,
to make this barrier?
Where was that from?
He's resourceful. Probably just found it somewhere.
He invented it in the field.
But
Knowing Janzo.
So him and Talon are on this journey basically to find this Colipsum, and then they see that their sellers are Greyskins, which is like, really?
Why really?
I don't know. Well, because Talon has a great point. She's like, why would Greyskins want to sell to humans? Also, the only thing we know of Greyskins is that they're just as dangerous as plaguelings, which we know to be, they harm humans, they don't care. So why would they be... It was a little shocking that they were, I guess, calm enough to interact with them.
Well, we learned a little more about Greyskins in this episode, in which the Greyskins seem to be a highly intelligent, organized group of people. They have their own language. They communicate. They're not monsters, which we do see from the plaguelings, seem to be driven by a bloodlust. The plaguelings are an infection, while the Greyskins are just a group of people who may or may not have a conflict with the humans, possibly over resources. And it seems that whatever culture, money is money. The same way the blade to the neck spoke the same in every language, gold speaks the same in every language. So why they grow Colipsum, we're not aware of yet. However, when it comes to trade, my biggest question was, why was Janzo unable to speak Greyskin? Since he speaks
everything else.
A whole group of languages. I believe it was 12 languages. Secondly, how did they understand the note if they don't speak English, which we're going to say is the predominant language of the outpost? If they don't speak English, then how did they understand the pigeon message?
I feel like they didn't really understand.
They understood enough to meet him in the middle of the woods.
I was gonna
with
say maybe they don't really even understand trade, because Janzo gave them all the gold, but then he got those 2 huge bags of Colipsum, which he's even like, this is too much. Like, and they kind of just went with it. Like, they didn't chase after them. They didn't see like, oh, you ripped me off kind of thing. So maybe they really don't get it.
Colipsum isn't a precious resource because they have so much of it. It's just a precious resource for everyone else because it's only in that specific area, and because the Greyskins are dangerous, no one ventures out there, so it's the only way that they can have access to the Colipsum by doing the trade deal. So for them, maybe it's just so bountiful that they don't really know its value to everyone else, so they just kind of give them 4 bags as opposed to 2.
I think Mina has a great point with that. Where it's the concept of, just because something's important to me doesn't mean that it's important for you, and vice versa. That's actually the nature of commerce and trade. I have a lot of something, I need something from you. You have a lot of something, we'll trade.
It's basically monopoly. Yeah.
Go past go. Take some money as you... What is that? Take some money
Collect
as you go.
$200.
Collect $200.
As you pass go.
Yeah, I was like, I have not played Monopoly in a long time, guys. But yeah, I'm kind of curious to get a little bit more insight on this story of the Greyskins. I don't think we're gonna get it just because they have so much to cover in the next 3 episodes. But I would just be very curious because they have definitely spent a lot of time developing the plaguelings of this world. And they introduced Greyskins in, I believe, the pilot as well. So it would also just kind of be nice to just, even if it was like 2 lines, like, oh yeah, Greyskins, I just personally kind of would be interested to know a little bit more, since they seem more complex. As you said, Tehran, more complex, less of a virus.
I feel like we're possibly going to see a lot more Greyskin activity, possibly a venture to where they are. There can be some type of connection. And when we go back to the Janzo's interaction with the Greyskins, he didn't seem to be that surprised that they were Greyskin, which is interesting.
He was less concerned than Talon was.
Exactly. He was a lot less concerned than Talon was.
He was concerned about it being 4 bags as opposed to 2.
He's
worried about the wrong thing.
He was more worried about the amount that they received, as if they had been given too much, than the concept of, I'm doing business with Greyskins.
Yeah. It shows that he does everything by the book. He's very honest.
He is.
But to a fault.
To a fault. And he's the one who is so afraid to go out on this journey by himself that he had Talon come out with him for this specific reason. Because there are violent creatures out there. And he's not concerned when he's like, oh, we're trading with Greyskins.
100%.
Oh, I'm just going to go up to them. It was a very comical interaction. Because it was a complete opposite of everything we know Janzo to be up to this point. Which again, this was a good episode of showing him in a different role than what we're used to.
But is it really a different role?
I mean, I don't think it's that much of a different role. I feel like Janzo is someone who always worries about the future, but is calm under pressure in a sense. Like, when he really has every reason to be fearful for his life, he tends to not show the same levels of anxiety he does when he's thinking about a plan or what's to come. So he's very much someone who kind of lives in the future as opposed to the present.
We definitely did see that, as Tehran mentioned, when he's fighting the Bone Wolf. Mm-hmm. And
he was still scared, but he was able to think on his feet.
Think under
fairly
pressure,
quickly.
Come up with the solution fairly quickly. Was worried more before he was actually being attacked, which led to the consequence of him becoming attacked, and then was able to remedy and save the day. Effectively, Janzo saved Talon.
He did.
And it's also
good for him.
It's such an interesting role reversal as well, because we're so used to seeing the man have the physical prowess and the woman having the intellectual prowess, but in this case it's Janzo with the intellectual prowess and Talon with, the strength and the ferocity. But it's just interesting to see that role reversal play out.
Did either of you two think that we were going to get another visit from the Lakiri, and it was going to be a quick instance of Talon finding out more about her powers, or finding out how to be able to use her powers? Because Janzo was like, it's a nice time to have that demon right about now.
I thought that only when I saw the portal later on. I thought the Lakiri would show up somehow.
Yeah, I definitely thought that for a hot second. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, it's going to be like a moment she finds out something about her powers. It's going to be something like that. She has the sword, the portal, the dragman, and the voice of the portal is like the dragman is coming, which...
Well, we still don't know if that was a dream or if that was an actual magical happening or magical epiphany. I'm looking forward to learning more. That's why it was interesting to see more myth and magic play into this world, because there were several episodes where it just played out like a drama, and this one, it finally became a legend. It became more of a story.
Most definitely. I think it was definitely her magic, not necessarily a dream or anything like that, just because we've seen that. Like, every time there has been something magical, it has been real. Mm-hmm. Even back in the very beginning when, like, the Lakiri first showed up and the portal first showed up. Like, she was sleeping, but it became very real. Like, it wasn't just a dream.
And oftentimes there is, like, this overlap between dreams and reality. We see it in Harry Potter all the time, where Voldemort's voice is inside Harry's head. And one of my favorite quotes is this a dream, or has it been happening all inside my head? Mm-hmm. And Dumbledore says, of course it's happening inside your head, but why on earth should that not make it real? Mm-hmm. So I feel like there is, like, this very interesting overlap with dreams and reality in shows like this.
It's interesting. The train station analogy is really good. I enjoy that concept, but the reason why it's not questioning whether it's a dream or if it's her actual magic. It's actually the consequences of, if it is real and the portal opened on its own, then what else can happen on its own or without her actually being able to control it? And that's the dangerous aspect of what I think could be a forthcoming consequence of not knowing how to control her powers. If this is a remnant of her power, then we're all in for some surprise and some trouble.
Definitely. I think we're going to definitely see more of her magic within the next coming episodes. So while Janzo and Talon got into some trouble, they're having a little bit more of a fun journey outside the outpost, whereas Gwyn, on the other hand, has had to step into a very difficult role for her that she has not been used to for most of her life. But before we go into her new role as queen, everyone, Tehran has a special announcement for you all.
Well, I just want to talk to all the AfterBuzzers out there. Thank you so much. Our network produces after shows for nearly all of your favorite TV shows. So thank you for watching and continuing to support. From dramas, reality TV, sci-fi, and more, there's no network that works harder to serve television fans. Trust me, we all know this, and so do you at home, but we need your help. We're asking that you please subscribe to one or more of our YouTube channels. By subscribing to our channel, YouTube will suggest content that's tailor-made for you, and you'll help AfterBuzz continue to grow, and we appreciate you so much. And if you're worried about those pesky notifications, don't be. They're optional, so just click off and hit that subscribe button now for this channel, and check for our other AfterBuzz YouTube channels as well. Let us know you did so in the comments below. We always check them. We love your responses. Thank you so much, and we'll thank you on air. For now, thank you for being the best fans and for helping us be the ESPN of TV talk.
Thanks, Tehran. All right, guys, let's go into Queen Gwyn, Queen Rosamund. So last episode, we had this very nice scene where Gwyn gives this speech to this new recruit of soldiers that they're trying to get together to bring down the Prime Order. And it seems, in that moment, it seems like she has the respect of these soldiers, that they're going to get together and they're going to complete this mission. But then this episode, right away, we see that there are soldiers who are trying to escape so they can warn the Prime Order. And it was very interesting just because there's a line Gwyn says later, which is, some of them were hired to fight Grayskin, some of them were hired for our cause. Not all of them are going to be with us, which was very obvious. You could suspect that not everyone was going to be with them because it's change, and people don't like change. People don't like going against the law. People don't like going against the order. But this was kind of a moment where Gwyn really had to step in as a queen. Mm-hmm. And because, you know, her men are torturing the guy who tried to get away. They're trying to find out who his accomplices are for trying to plan conspiracy against the crown. But Gwyn is so conflicted because she doesn't want to be the queen and rule the way the Prime Order has, which is torturing, hurting, and she's just so conflicted.
Well, there's threefold, right? So we're looking at Gwyn the queen, who now has to take on this role and mantle. Then we're looking at Gwyn the uniter, the person, is this the person that's able to lead? So that's different than being just the queen. The queen is a ruling party. Now, as the leader or the uniter, that's something who someone has the respect where we will listen to your cause. We want to be on board. And then we're also seeing a conflict with Gwyn the person. And all three have different individual roles. Queen has to decide on someone's life or death. The leader has to decide on showing everyone how merciful she is when not giving in to torturing the prisoner. And then Gwyn the person is shocked, stunned, and upset by what just transpired. And it's the three parts of this emotional struggle as Gwyn fits into the shoes of her destiny.
Yeah.
And I think she ultimately decides to make that difficult decision and go with what may appear to be gruesome at first, but in reality, what she's doing is what a lot of leaders do, is she's setting a precedent, because she knows early on you have to establish some sort of authority, and your first impression or your initial ruling matters a lot. That's why, especially in the United States of America, we always pay attention to the first 90 days in office when a president first, takes his seat as president of the United States. We always talk about what did he accomplish in the first 90 days? What will he accomplish in the first 90 days? So it's really important to set that precedent early on so that people know what they're dealing with. And for her, the most important thing is loyalty. She wants people to be loyal to the crown, and she knows that she has to make this decision so that no one else, she's deterring more people from doing what has already been done. And from leaving.
See, I think loyalty plays in part of the queen aspect, but when it comes to a leader, you need to respect the leader. And that's what she was making a play for with being merciful, because we actually saw a ruthless side of Gwyn when we thought she might spare the prisoner, and she was actually quick to judge them guilty and put them to death. Without torture, but still it was a punishment. It was very harsh of a punishment, so to speak, for the crime at hand. And it's interesting to see that in a revolution, not everyone's on board. Even in the American Revolution, where history looks on it with such light, only something like 30% of all the colonists actually wanted to revolt against their sovereign. It's very difficult, as you pointed out, to go against your sovereign and think, I'm going to go against the law, to stand up. So when people are protesting, it's a far cry from revolution.
There's always that trickle down effect. It always takes one person and then the second person to join, and it's like a domino effect. This happened with the Arab Spring a while back, where it was one country after another, and finally, like, whole Middle East was on fire in
It was
northern
like
Africa.
2009, everything.
Yeah,
just
it
back
just
to back.
started in
Egypt.
Tunisia, then one after another. So we see this a lot. It takes the ball to get rolling before more people come on board, because there are a lot of people who, like, even when it comes to inventions, there's always the early adopters of some novel invention, and then people who finally get on board once they see everyone else is doing it.
Granted, this is the role she was born to do, but she was, at this specific point in time, forcefully put into this role by the blackmail of Withers, essentially, and we'll get to him later. But I think for stepping into this role so abruptly, she's doing the best she can. I think she's doing a good
Is it abruptly, though? Or has she been groomed for this? She's clearly been groomed. She's clearly had teachers. She's known about this. This isn't a shock to her. She didn't find out when everyone else found out. She knew.
She knew, yeah.
And this day was coming. And they've been planning this for some time, because they have a lot of supporters. So she knew this was coming. There was nothing abrupt about this change of pace in her life. Whether it came now or in a month or a month before, it was all about to be the same.
It's abrupt in the way we interpret it, I think.
And the way it was brought to the audience. Because that was going to be my next question was, do you think Gwyn would have had an easier time with, say, for example, the execution? You think she would have had an easier time with that if she was raised in the actual, royal family, with her family? Or do you think it would have been hard regardless, because it's just...
I think it would be hard regardless. I mean, watching one thing happen in front of you when someone else is the decision maker at hand, you become desensitized to it. But being the key decision maker and having that responsibility and the blood on your hands, that's a completely different story. So even if you're exposed to it, I feel like carrying out that, that sentence for someone is definitely hard to deal with, especially when you are someone who feels so deeply. And I feel like Gwyn does get affected by things like that, despite what she knows to be the greater good. She's doing all of this for the greater good. Or maybe she's not. Who knows? Because she did have a conversation with Garret that came up later.
She did. And that was something else that I wanted to go into is Gwyn was privileged in the sense that she didn't have what other royals in her situation would have, which is to live this other life, this commoner life. Granted, she was still high class among the commoners, but she was able to, have a father look out for her. She was able to have a romantic interest. And I feel even though she has now fully accepted this role as queen, she wants things in her life to sort of stay the same. Like when Commander Kalkasar comes in, he's like, you should stop calling me dad. But she doesn't want to. Yes, Mina.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, nothing. Nothing.
Mina was like daddy during the episode, and it was just no,
because he said I don't want you to call me father anymore, and it was a really weird moment. I just didn't know where it was going.
It was, but yeah, she doesn't want to, because that's, in her mind, that's her father, that's who raised her. And then again with Garret is like, you're the queen, I'm kind of a nothing soldier once you get into this full role. But she's like, well, I want you.
Well, if you watch something like The Crown, which is a very similar effect of a person who's thrust into a life that they possibly might not have chosen for themselves, but were given to during circumstance, when we see Queen Elizabeth rise to power, it's interesting. Something as simple as, you shouldn't call me father anymore. And as much as it was interesting to watch that dynamic, what the concept is you as a queen no longer call me just the general father. You're the queen. Also, you have to give up the remnant of your old life, your regular life. And we see that with the queen in The Crown as well. And not every royal steps into their position in transitions easily, which we see once again on The Crown with Margaret. Same thing with the queen with Gwyn, who's, by the way, her acting in this episode specifically was great. Her conversation with Garret, who I've always said is a really good actor. Finally, I saw something in Imogen Waterhouse, which was her acting prowess, and she was able to create and spark emotion and empathy for her character in a way I had not seen in the previous episodes.
Yeah, definitely good for them. Hey, Julia in the booth, can we get a round of applause for Imogen and Jake for their great job on the show? Yeah. Yes. Wonderful. No, but I definitely agree. I think that scene between the two of them where they're having that conversation shined the most for the both of them in this specific episode. And that last line with Gwyn where she's telling Garret, you know, like, we're fighting for our freedom, but I'm also fighting for my freedom. Because she knows she has this role, but again, she wants to live her life because she's lived so much of her life not in this role. And again, I know I've said this before, but I feel like that's just so hard for her to give up because that's what she's so used to.
There was part of me that kept wondering if she was testing Garret the whole time by saying, would you
Oh,
put
for
me
sure.
first, or would you put your kingdom first? And she was leading him on to say, I want you to put me first, but I felt like what her underlying feelings were, like she really wanted to know if he would respect the wishes of the past queen and look out for the kingdom. Like, I feel like it was all a test. It was really to see where his loyalties lie, because at the end of the day, I feel like she really does value the kingdom and her people more than we think.
That's interesting, Mina, because I actually, seeing the last scene, I thought it was a foreshadow of the flip reverse is, would Gwyn put Garret first or the kingdom? So
Right.
it was just the
Yeah,
foreshadow
yeah.
of that.
And that's why I had predicted, like, at a certain point in the episode, when the plaguelings attacked, I was thinking, like, this takes me back to that original conversation where now, when the roles are reversed, is Gwyn going to look out for Garret, even as he's turning into a plagueling, which I think is what's happening right now. Like, I think he's actually turning into a plagueling. Is she going to have that loyalty to him that she asked of him for her? And I think she will. I genuinely think that she will, because we even see that when she's like, where is Garret? It's not like him to be missing unless he needs help. She's very, very loyal. She wants to make sure that her man is protected.
Well, she's also in love with Garret. She's
Well, yeah.
and also she looks up to Garret. And there's something in this episode that was very subtle is when the sergeant is told not to torture, he doesn't look at the general or the queen. He waits for the nod from Garret before he acts and removes himself from the situation.
But do you think that's just because, again, that's who these soldiers have been seeing as their authority figure for so long? Like, for them, this is new, that now they have this queen that they have to listen to.
But the general was there. So the general is clearly in any single list of leadership, you're going to see that the general's at the top. So the general's command should be enough. Even if you don't fully buy into the concept of the queen, you still should take your general's word. But all the soldiers respect Garret. And that's something that Garret is very good at doing, is earning the respect of those around him. It's very natural for him to be a leader. We see him making decisions. We see him being in control of situations. We see him thinking ahead.
But we also see him letting Rosamund lead, and I think a great leader knows when to let someone else lead and when to step away. Like, we all know the famous story of George Washington saying that he thinks, you know, that 4 years or 2 terms is the max for any president because he didn't want the United States to turn into a dictatorship, or like the way England was, a monarchy. So a great leader really knows what his place is and allows other people to lead after him, or even while he is still alive. And that's exactly what Garret did.
I don't know if it's because he's a great leader. I think it's because he feels like his place as a commoner is there. He's very aware of his role. His great leadership comes from the fact that while he's a good team player, he also knows that he is a natural born leader. And that's something that isn't, I'm a great leader, so I'm going to take a step back. He just naturally dictates the respect of the people around him. It has nothing to do with terms, has nothing to do with dictatorship, has nothing to do with his willingness to allow the queen to lead he's doing that because he feels that is his role as a soldier, as a captain, and as a commoner. But other than that, he's shown great aptitude for leadership.
Yes, Garret has shown great potential for being a leader, but someone who's been a leader and has not been a very great one at that was Marshall Withers. So before we get into any of his stuff, I just want to take a moment to remind everyone out there about iTunes. So of course we're on YouTube. If you're watching us, please subscribe there and give us a comment, but you can also catch us on iTunes. Please rate, review, and subscribe. And just like YouTube, if you leave us a comment, we will definitely give you a shout out. So again, YouTube, iTunes, take us with you, and definitely rate, review, and subscribe. So thank you again for all of that. Okay, Marshall Withers, bad man. And I love how...
Is he a bad man? Interesting.
I think so. I've always been weary of him. He's clearly, aside from the Prime Order, the other villain, the other main villain. He's definitely set up to be that.
He's definitely an antagonist in the show, but is he a bad person? Does Marshall Withers...
Is there such thing as a bad person?
Sure, there are people who are bad. I would say Hitler. However, when you look at a concept of intention, is Marshall Withers' intentions bad? Is it malice for the outpost? Does he actually wish bad on people, or is he just stuck in his way? He is stuck to the confirmation of the law as is. He's stuck to the rules and regulations. He knows that the Prime Order, remember the Prime Order, regardless of what side we're looking at this lens, there's two sides to every story, and then there's the truth. The Prime Order is the sovereign of the outpost. And Marshall Withers is just stuck in his way, in his order, and there isn't that much gray area. It's black or white, and that's just the person that he is. But I don't know if he has bad intentions for the outpost or for those around him. That would make him a bad person.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
But it's still the road to hell.
Yeah. I definitely agree that he abides by the law, whether the law at times seems just or not. But in this particular case, and I know earlier we were talking about Gwyn and trying to be a leader and trying to get loyalty, and how even in the last episode, she felt like she didn't have the ability to have, I guess you could say, servants when she hasn't been a queen. They have nothing to like see her for. Or there was, you know, the conversation. I can't think about it 100% what she said right now. But I like how in this conversation, she very much asserted her royal power in this sense, because, you know, she brought Marshall Withers in. She's accusing him of murdering her handmaid, someone who was more to her than just her handmaid.
Sure.
And he flat out is like, you know, like, I'm going to blackmail you. I'm going to, if you try to do anything to me, I can blackmail you, and the Prime Order will get letters describing everything that's going on. And yeah, they're like, what was it? Calcazar was like, you know, I can get you for extortion of the queen. And so in that sense, it's just kind of like, I don't know, what would he gain? The secret's out now at this point. And if he's so about the law, what would he gain, I guess?
He didn't want to lose his position, which he lost. So I can understand him being concerned for his own safety. That's a very understandable proposition. If this revolution fails, what's going to happen? We keep assuming that it's a successful revolution. What happens if it isn't? What happens if the queen wasn't as great as we think? We're only hearing the side of the story from that of Gwyn. We don't know. There was some type of overthrow. The people don't seem to be that upset. As we see, they do have collaborators that are there and are aware of everything going on and saying, hey, I didn't sign up for this. I signed up to attack the Grayskins, who are in conflict with my way of life.
That's what I was going to say, is like we don't know if it's going to be a successful revolution because we're already starting to see it falling apart.
We saw some dissent. And so my thing is, sure, we are under the understanding that Gwyn is good. The general's intentions are good. We love Garret. We understand. We appreciate them. However, from Withers' standpoint, these are all outlaws. Everything they're doing, and it is technically illegal. What they are doing is against the rules that exist at this time. Marshall Withers was there during the first overthrow and we don't know which side he was on at that time, but I think he's simply on the side of the law and on himself. But I don't believe he has bad intentions. I have not seen that. He was wary of Talon, who has caused a disrupt in the outpost, regardless of how much we like her or not. She's brought in a Lucuri. She's now a drug dealer. There's a lot that we're just giving down. We're like, oh, we love Talon, so it's fine. She's smuggling Colipsum back into the outpost. She has killed people without repercussion. Whether they're bad or not, that's not how the law works. That's vengeance. Vengeance and justice are two different things.
And we also learned that his sentence is to go down to the mines, which there's a quick line of he has some kind of family history in the mines. And I hope we learn a little bit more about that because it was kind of a quick line and we know that there's a connection there. But he's also has a lot of enemies in the mines. He's basically reunited with all the people he probably put there. So
sure, we see this happen with any law enforcement that ends up going to jail. They are often attacked. They're victims of attack because a lot of people feel that it is their fault that they are there in the first place. And Marshall Withers was the law for a very long time. And we see that he gets attacked swiftly. And it's possible that his need to be more comes from his father being a consummate criminal. And that's the family connection which we see. Also, Marshall Withers may or may not have brothers.
that's true. We do know that he is being protected down there, though, because we get introduced to the character Syl, who is hired by the mistress to look out for them, because, of course, they're romantically involved. So I think it's going to be interesting seeing Marshall Withers go from essentially top dog to now being a prisoner in this mine and having someone having to look out for him.
But what was interesting is the fact that his first inkling was to think that it was his son, which it was Garret that helped when he was told that someone in a high position was looking out for him. And it was the mistress. The mistress who we've seen their relationship is very interesting. We always think that it's almost apathetic in a way, and it seems to be an agreement, an arrangement, a tick for tat, a situation where the mistress feels like she can use Marshall Withers. But in this case, it seems like her only goal is because it's someone she cares about, because there's no other advantage. And we also see something very interesting is that Marshall Withers' replacement is almost the larger of two evils. He's clearly doesn't have the temperament or the characteristics or the disposition of Marshall Withers, who we thought was a bad man. Well, this guy seems a lot worse.
Yeah, he's definitely not going to get anything done. He's
disrespectful. He's crude. He's easily angered. He's temperamental. His disposition is horrid. He's got even the way he's very sloppy.
He's just all over the place, and he's just not getting.
And he seems like he's only out for himself. This guy this is when you talk about bad intentions. He has bad intentions. He's for sale to the highest bidder, and I don't believe that Marshall Withers was for sale.
Good points. All right, guys, we're running a little behind on time, so any final thoughts of this episode before we go into some fan shoutouts?
Once again, I just want to point out great acting, great storylines. We did introduce a lot of new plots that hopefully will also be filled since we are tying up some loose ends and connecting things. We have how many more episodes? 3 more episodes?
Yeah.
3 more episodes to figure it out, and hopefully a season 2 to come and get larger. And also I was introduced to the character of Naya, who's the replacement for Lily. And Naya is played by Medallion Rahimi, and she not only being extremely beautiful, but seems to have a separate motive that I'm hoping to learn more about her storyline.
Yeah, I just want to finally figure out what the benefits of Colipsum are. I mean, this has been emphasized throughout the entirety of the season, and we still don't know what it does. We were talking about this a little bit behind the scenes about how there's probably multiple cures and uses for it, and how maybe we can, turn Garret back into a normal person instead of a plagueling. Cure him with the Colipsum.
Please cure him. All right, guys. So in YouTube and on YouTube and on iTunes, we always appreciate your discussions and your comments. You guys are awesome when it comes to talking about this show, and we just wanted to give a few special shout outs to some of our commenters.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks so much to Kenny Cross, to Grace for ET, to Stephanie Faye Page, Taylor Ran Lawless, John Hill, the Queen of Regal once again, Marcus Samoas, and Adam Rodriguez. Thank you so much for being awesome, for interacting with us, for just really getting into our show. We really appreciate you.
Yes. We appreciate you because you guys are as much a part of this show as we are on the panel. The conversation and topics that we discuss and all the comments below, we appreciate each and every one. Thank you so much.
Definitely. Again, thank you, because without you, we wouldn't be able to sit here and be talking about this. So definitely, again, thank you so much. All right, guys, let's get into some predictions for next week's episode.
Your Afterbuzz TV predictions.
All right. So after last week's episode, Mina, we were talking about this before the show. After last week's episode, on my way home, I had like a Jimmy Neutron brain blast and was basically like, okay, so the Colipsum has kind of been a floating storyline. The plagueling virus has kind of been a floating storyline. And now that Garret is more than likely turning into a plagueling, as we see in the next episode, he wants Janzo to kill him because he's contagious. The Colipsum, the new raw Colipsum that they found, is the cure for the plagueling virus. That's what I think. That's what I think.
That's the theory, the prevailing theory.
Yes, but I feel like more problems are going to arise once once Talon learns how to summon the demon once more that she sent back to the portal. And I just want to know where the Book of Names is as much as they do. I feel like it's going to be somewhere that was right in front of them the entire time that they never thought to look. So I feel like they're looking in the wrong places. They're venturing outwards when it's probably going to be somewhere in the outpost.
I was going to say, I wonder if it's something that Talon can summon or
like the Room of Requirement.
Yeah.
I was thinking that. I was like, I wonder if it's something that could appear and maybe it's not necessarily in a place, but can kind of be conjured up. Yeah. In another portal. Like you have to go here to get this and it'll lead you to the Book of Names. Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering that.
I could see that definitely.
There's like a lot of loose ends that I feel are going to be tied up next episode, and then obviously more problems that are going to arise because we still have 3 episodes left. Where I feel like I don't even know if the season's going to end in a nice neat bow, because oftentimes with a season 1 they like to end it on a cliffhanger so that people will be really eager to know what happens next, so it gets renewed for a season 2. I feel like that's a really smart strategy when it comes to season 1 shows.
I definitely hope next episode they go a lot more into this Book of Names, because they hyped it up so much last episode, and this episode all we got was kind of the same information that we already know, which is it's also called the Rex Vexicon. Yeah. Basically. So I hope next episode we get to learn more about it.
I think Talon's going to get pregnant. I think Garrett's going to murder Janzo. No, I'm just throwing out. But if I was right on any of those, how crazy would that be? Right? No, I actually see something kind of sparking up between Janzo and Talon.
I like their friendship. I do.
No, let's friend zone.
Definitely not a friendship anymore, because now that Talon feels protected and she sees
it was something.
It could go a little more.
She's like, you saved my life.
As of right now, it's a friendship, so I like what it is right now.
And it'll be something where it's a little disappointing if at the end Talon gives Janzo a kiss and that's his prize for everything. It's like, I'd rather you just not have kissed him. Just let him stay in that, in that bubble. Zone. But the concept is, I feel like even the way she pulled him and was like, read the book, there was just something more familiar about that than from before. I think Talon is liking having a companion, is enjoying having someone there. She's very aware of Janzo's feelings and attraction. And I think hers is growing, especially her respect is clearly growing for Janzo. But I think that this is a case where attraction is being is being grown and wasn't sparked or spontaneous.
Those are the best kinds, though. Like, to have someone who's your best friend and then you end up being soulmates, I feel like those are the best relationships.
Well, it depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
Depends on what you enjoy.
Yeah, because
some people want that instant
didn't work out
attraction right away.
so well for the Wonder Years. That's all I'm saying.
All right, guys, those are great predictions, but unfortunately, that is all the time we have for tonight's episode. Where can the fans find you on the internet?
Well, find me at I Am Tehran all across the board, at IAMTEHRAN on the social atmosphere. I appreciate you very much for your follow.
Hey everyone, I'm Mina. You can follow me on Instagram at Mina Makes Magic, and make sure to tune in to Burden of Truth every Thursday here at Afterbuzz TV.
And I'm Veronica. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at It's Me, Veronica_V. You can also catch me on the Castle Rock After Show Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific time. But thank you again so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it, and make sure to see us again next week. Bye, guys.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Afterbuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the Afterbuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterbuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of Afterbuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.